Coup on Mombasa, extremist youth leaves at least 2 dead. Children bear the brunt as Turkana famine continues to ravage. Also, retrenched cops find their way back to the force in Kimayo's police shakeup. Nuers and Dinkas learn to coexist as the reality of refugee life sinks in.
KTN Weekend Prime with Yvonne Okwara.
A very good evening to you on this second day of February 2014. Welcome to KTN Weekend Prime. Today, it is Sunday, so that means it is Checkpoint. And today, as you have been able to follow the discussion on social media, we are talking about the relevance of political parties and how they help to shape government policy and development in this country. We will be discussing that today. Mbadi was not able to make it. John Mbadi, that is the MP of Suba, but in his place we will have the member of National Assembly representing Ruaraka constituents, TJ Kajwang, and he will be joining our panel tonight. Also, seeing as we're talking about democracy and political parties, who better to have than Omingo Magara, who's the chair of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. He will be joining our panel tonight. Of course, Johnson Sakaja and Professor Kisiangani will be here as well. Remember, we'll also be talking about what's just happened in Mombasa earlier this afternoon. We'll be talking about radicalization, who is behind it, and how do we handle this. We'll have a Muslim scholar with us to talk more about this. So it's a great bulletin. We're glad you could join us. But let's start off, of course, with that top story in Mombasa, where 2 people have been killed following chaos at the Masjid Musa Mosque in Mombasa's Majengo area as police battled rioting youth. Police raided the famous mosque after receiving intelligence of an alleged jihad training and recruitment exercise leading to resistance from the youth. The police have arrested around 200 young men and women and have recovered an AK-47 rifle as well as pangas and knives. Ben Kitili has an update on that police siege.
Trouble started at around midday on Sunday when police stormed the Masjid Musa Mosque in Majengo, Mombasa on receiving information of alleged jihadist activities inside. But on getting inside the mosque, the heavily armed officers met resistance from a group of youth, leading to the afternoon fracas where gunshots were fired. 2 people have been confirmed dead from the incident, with dozens others injured from what looked like gunshot wounds. They are being treated at the Coast General, Pandya and Mewa hospitals.
There are casualties both from security and from the other side of the radicals. We recovered several arsenal, including 1 AK-47, a number of knives, and several of such weapons, crude weapons, that these people were armed with. And that confirms that they were not just for normal prayer.
The region's police coordinator, Agri Adoli, has however told KTN that no police officer was killed in the raid.
So we had information that they were going to converge, and that kind of training or radicalization, or to make the matters worse, jihadism.
Unconfirmed reports indicate that one of those arrested is the son of deceased Muslim preacher linked with terror activities in the country. It is in this same mosque where Abu Drogo used to preach before he was killed in unclear circumstances in 2012, leading to violence in the coastal town. Both Rogo and Sheikh Ismail, another preacher associated with the mosque, were killed in similar drive-by shootings. 2 days ago, police say they intercepted leaflets that the Masjid Musa Mosque was going to host jihad training and recruitment.
I don't think we are going at any cost to allow this kind of practice to happen here in Mombasa and even in the country at large.
For months, both the Masjid Musa and the Masjid Bahero Mosque in Kisauni, Mombasa, have been under investigation for reportedly supporting extremism. Police are still screening the scene of Sunday's siege. Ben Kitili, KTN.
And we will get back to that in just a short while from now. But let's move on to the situation regarding food security in the country. Now, as hunger continues to bite residents of Turkana County, the government is in top gear distributing relief food. But with most of this food aid being maize and beans, how will the starving Turkanas cook this meal with the scarce water they have? And are the nutritional demands of the most vulnerable, children, being put into consideration? KTN's Asha Mwilu looks at the nutrition challenges that face aid distributors in Turkana.
Singing erupts in Choko Chok village in Turkana County as government officials arrive with relief food. But this is not a happy song. They are lamenting, wondering how long the government will sit and watch as the Turkanas continue to die of hunger. Under the scorching sun, they have waited hours for food to arrive. Almost every single woman in this group clutches onto the most precious commodity, water. But it's ironic, the type of food the government has chosen to distribute. Wanjiko Wairia spent nearly 5 years in South Sudan as a nutritional expert during the war period. She says, in her experience in dealing with malnutritioned people, distributing maize and beans during famine is not a well-thought-out plan.
By the time somebody is severely malnourished, the system has literally shut down. In fact, your body is eating itself. So even trying to put in solids as a solid, whether it's maize or beans or whatever it is that you're giving them, or even ugali, assuming you're even trying to be very kind and give them ugali, it becomes a big challenge for the body to digest.
But the government knew all this beforehand. According to a report by a nutritional working group in Turkana, by August last year, the National Drought Management Authority had confirmed that 93,900 people in Turkana were at risk of acute food insecurity. A total 69,800 required food assistance. But these scenes from Turkana District Hospital shows just how little has been done to intervene. They're reminiscent of the scenes from the last famine in 2011. Kenyans went into an immediate frenzy to donate food aid. But already, 5 children have died from malnutrition within the past month in this hospital alone.
A child who is malnourished due to lack of enough food intake or diseases, so they get complications of maybe anemia, malaria, TB, name other diseases. So they come here for stabilization.
Whereas maize and beans is great, there will be a large chunk of people, both adults and children, pregnant and or lactating mothers on the ground who may not be able to assimilate that food. And that is why, depending on the severity of the malnutrition, you will find that we actually recommend that you actually go for, one, something that is liquid, and it usually would be viscous, not like porridge, like what we would have for porridge on a normal day, but something like that, but that is also nutrient dense.
Perhaps the biggest irony of all is Kenya's response to her crisis-hit neighbor, South Sudan. While evacuating Kenyans in December, the military ferried tons of ready-to-eat relief food in form of baked beans, biscuits, and water. But in Turkana, the best they've done is maize and beans. In 5 years, these are scenes Kenyans have witnessed over and over from Turkana. But it appears a lesson never learned. As the hunger continues to bite, the only thing the locals can do is sing. Sing for help. Asha Mwilu, KTN.
Right, and to that interview that we had promised you, of course, we witnessed some ugly scenes in Mombasa earlier this afternoon when the police laid a siege on the mosque, believing that there was some activity that was going on there. And to just give us perspective on this and to discuss radicalization in the country, we have Dr. Abdallah here, who's an imam and lecturer at the Kenyatta University. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Radicalization is what the police, are battling with every day, and they fear that there was a jihad conference that was basically recruiting people. Let's talk about this problem of radicalization of young men and women in this country.
Well, thank you very much first for inviting me to this your wonderful studio. To me, radicalization is not a new phenomenon on earth. It has been there, it is still there. And it's not only with the Muslims. There are Christians who are radical, capitalists who are radical, communists who are radical, and so on and so forth. So it is a sort of an ideology which has entered into many communities today.
Right, and like you say...
Allow me, please. Today, what is happening, for example, in Central Africa, that is very hurting. Those are Muslims being killed by Christians. Those Christians, I believe, they're also radical Christians. But the thing which I don't really like it is when you zero down when it comes to the issue of extremism and radicalization to be an Islamic perspective.
Okay, all right. Noted and understood. But what leads a young person to that point, for whatever religion or whatever belief? What is the problem exactly that leads young people, and specifically in this country and at the coast, to be vulnerable to such extremist thoughts and beliefs?
There are so many things which lead to radicalization, especially along the coastal region. There are historical injustice, which has been there since independence. There is a breakdown between the youth and the scholars. There is poverty also, which is another cause. There is also an ideology. When you are in poverty, a person can come with an ideology and put it into your mind. Because you are badly in need of money, sustenance, you may accept any ideology. I remember, in fact, a few days ago, I think yesterday and before yesterday, BBC were talking about the youth in Africa. The number of the youth in Africa is very high. Not here in Kenya, not in Uganda, in the whole of Africa. But unfortunately, the most suffering people today in Africa are the youth. They are not really treated the way they are supposed to be treated. They are not given opportunity for jobs. They are not given their rights. And now, when you are idle, anybody can come and pick you and take you anywhere. So, to me, I think there are so many factors which has contributed to that. Among them is poverty, historical injustices.
Yes, unemployment could be one of those.
Exactly.
When you take a look at then the response to this radicalization process, obviously it's not something we can solve in one day. And, you know, the police laying a siege at the Masjid Musa Mosque, believing that there was some sort of recruitment going on. If you were to sit down and advise the policymakers and advise the police, what's the best way to handle this problem?
In fact, to me, I feel very sad the action which was taken by the police entering into the mosque with shoes. A mosque is a place of worship, and you cannot correct a mistake by another mistake. When a person does a mistake, you should find a way of handling. Now, what has happened, I believe the police knew before it happened, because these people are human beings, they are youth, they are Kenyans, and I knew, in fact, they have been putting this in the internet, you know, spreading the news that they're going to conduct a lecture. What I know, it was a lecture, or lectures, okay? You cannot recruit people in the mosque. See? And let us assume, for the sake of argument, if that has happened, where are they going to be taken? Who are there at our borders to take care? Where are those people who are at our borders to take care of our country? So to me, I don't think that is a genuine reason to justify the policemen to enter into the mosque and start kicking people, doing what they did. To me, I really don't agree with that.
Okay, all right, and we thank you for your time. And this is indeed something that we will be discussing over a long period of time and getting insights on just how to be able to sort out this issue. We thank you so much for your time this evening. We've been speaking to Sheikh Abdallah here, who's a lecturer and scholar, and he's at the Kenyatta University talking about the crisis that we saw in Mombasa earlier this afternoon. Let's move on to other news now. It is the hope of any expectant woman to give birth safely and to a healthy child. However, maternal and child mortality rates in Kenya remain disturbingly high. First Lady Margaret Kenyatta launched the Beyond Zero campaign today, aimed at reducing preventable maternal and child deaths. She championed this campaign today during the launch of the Nairobi International Women Half Marathon, calling for a collective effort in reaching a state of zero maternal and child mortality. Sharon Momanyi reports.
19-year-old Margaret Akoth from Kolwa in Kisumu County goes about her household chores as usual. Though 8 months pregnant, she carries out heavy duties such as collecting firewood unrelentlessly. Breaking sweat's not her fear, but her difficulty in accessing prenatal care largely is.
Wakati nilianza kwenda kliniki, nilienda na mguu. Na nililipa shilingi 150 ndio wakanipatia hiyo kadi. Kifikanga huko napatanga kama watu ni wengi sana. Lazima ukae kwanza ndio watu wenye walikuwa mbele wamalizie kwanza ndio saa yako ikifika ndio utafanyiwa.
Margaret is among thousands of expectant women in Kenya hoping to deliver healthy babies and in a safe manner, in spite of a damning backdrop of a high level of maternal morbidity and deaths in the country.
Every year, we are losing 5,000 mothers due to pregnancy-related causes.
It is for this reason that the First Lady, Margaret Kenyatta, today kicked off the inaugural Nairobi International Women Half Marathon while championing her Beyond Zero campaign. The campaign aims to raise funds to help improve maternal and child health care in the country. Accompanied by several governors' wives and cabinet secretaries Hassan Wario and James Macharia, the First Lady, together with the participants, got a chance to run a distance of almost 2 kilometers.
I will run to ensure that we keep mothers, newborns, and children alive and healthy. I will run until we go beyond zero. No more preventable deaths of mothers and children.
Determined to stay not just healthy but also beautiful, scores of expectant women in Nairobi today participated in a beauty pageant at the highlight of pregnancy and baby fair at the Sarit Center. Their confident strut on the runway giving a statement that we carry life, uphold health, and exude beauty.
I expect good care from the doctors will be handling me. Of late, there are stories that come up every now and then of negligence in hospitals, kids dying, a mother saying that they weren't taken care of during labor. Maybe I don't know how the government can work to sensitize or the doctor's body can sensitize the other doctors such that when you're in labor, that they actually take care of you.
Maternal deaths could be caused by unsafe abortions or directly related to childbirth, often due to unskilled delivery. Obstetric complications such as severe bleeding, infection, hypertensive disorders, and obstructed labor are other causes of maternal deaths. While the 5th Millennium Development Goal aimed to reduce maternal mortality by 75% by the year 2015, this remains disturbingly high in Kenya. It is a hope then that initiatives such as the Beyond Zero campaign will work to reverse this trend. Sharon Momanyi for KTN in Nairobi.
Inspector General of Police David Kimayo has transferred at least 40 senior police officers in a police shake-up which is expected to address the issue of regional balance in the police hierarchy, among other things. OCPD of the troublesome Kayole area, Samuel Mukinda, has been named the new county commander in Narok, and he has replaced Grace Kakai, who has moved to Vigilance House. Benjamin Kogo is the new Marsabit County Commissioner and has replaced Erastus Muthamia, who has moved to Eastern Police Headquarters. Kayole, which is notorious for terror gangs, will now be under Joseph Ndegwa. The shakeup has also seen police officers who were dismissed from the service 9 years ago reinstated and posted to new positions. This follows a court ruling in July last year, which reversed the decision by former Police Chief Major General Hussein Ali and the Public Service Commission to retire the said officers back in 2004. Right, let's take you to South Sudan now. And the mayor of Bor Town, the capital city of South Sudan's Jonglei state, wants help in reconstructing the town. Bor was one of the worst hit areas from the civil unrest that erupted in mid-December last year. Now it is a ghost town with a pungent smell of rotting bodies and trash scattered all over the place. The mayor says that his town faced major destruction when the rebels took over, killing hundreds and looting property from destroyed homes and offices. officers. Few residents are returning slowly into Bor, but only to gather up what remains of their belongings before fleeing elsewhere. Staying in South Sudan, the fighting there has left an estimated 10,000 people dead. Many have sought refuge in neighboring countries, including Kenya. Now, the Kakuma refugee camp, however, South Sudan refugees have learned to coexist despite their differences in tribe. KTN's Mercy Kandia was in Kakuma and now brings us the story of life at the camp.
Crowds at Nadapal border, some of the 500,000 families displaced by the ongoing clashes in South Sudan arrived to seek refuge in Kenya. What they willingly left behind is their belonging so they can survive. But what they would really like to leave behind and is proving hard are the sad memories.
The situation we're in actually in Juba is really bad because, to die, it's something easy.
Inside the Kakuma refugee camp, the game of dominoes is quite popular, the game that unites. Here they sit together, unlike what is currently being witnessed back in South Sudan. There are many groupings like this throughout the Kakuma refugee camp in a bid to mend a torn past.
We are all a different tribes here. They are sitting here. We have Lotukos, we have Lopit, we have Didingas, we have Nuer, who are normally. We join ourselves here.
It is a friendship that develops over time. Many have been here for over 15 years, crossing the borders as enemies on day one. But time has taught them how to live with each other.
We inform them the laws of the land, and they should leave all the grudges, all the problems they were having in their home country.
The land in Turkana West is now home to the second largest refugee camp in the country and is now what 130,000 refugees call home. When dawn breaks, it's a buzz of activity here. Like a town, the locals tread with refugees. Business as usual.
Nauza uji, nauza unga yolo, mafuta, akimata baba yeduna.
Apart from the non-food items provided by the aid agencies at the camp, many refugees start businesses to get money to better their lives here.
Yalitokea shida nyingi sana hapa Kakuma. Nimeona siwezi kukaa kwa nyumba hivi ili nikajifanya kwa kupiga hiyo biashara ili niweze kujisaidia gisi ya mtoto kupata sabuni.
Such games help reduce idleness for many without jobs at Kakuma. Nash Mark, a South Sudan refugee, is the chairman of the roadside playing club. The Kakuma camp, however, has its own system of government that ensures harmonious existence.
We have the camp leadership, elected refugees. Then we have the zonal leaders. These are elected refugees. Then we have block leaders. Every block have one security guard, a chair lady, and a block chairman.
It has been said east or west, home is best. For these South Sudan refugees arriving at the border, the home that may seem best for now is the camp as they flee war at home, and time, hopefully, will restore the home, South Sudan.
Many here at the Kakuma refugee camp strive to live normal lives, but that's not the only effort being made here. When these young men gather and sit at the roadside club, they strive to live in unity, sitting here as men of different tribes. Mercy Kandia, KTN, at the Kakuma refugee camp in Turkana County.
Let's move to matters of education now. And Form 1 students are expected to start reporting to secondary schools tomorrow. But for dozens of students, their dream of further education will be coming to an end simply because they cannot afford school fees. But just why will a child fail to enjoy his right of education when the law stipulates that every child has a right to free and compulsory primary and secondary education in public schools? KTN's Angel Katusia explains.
Under the scorching sun, they queued for hours. This was in Kibera. Parents and guardians flocked the constituency office for the official bursary application day for their children. With relevant documents in their hands, among them voters' cards, parents and guardians were hopeful that they will get something to further their children's education. According to Kibra Member of Parliament Ken Okoth, money allocated to them is far less than what the parents require.
Na hazitoshi, tunataka kuhakikisha kwamba they're distributed in a fair, open, transparent and convincing manner.
Elimu ni haki ya kila mtoto. Kwa hivyo tunaomba kwamba pia masomo ya upili bei yake ine chini na ikiwezekana iwe fully kama primary school.
Section 28, Cap 1 of the Basic Education Act 2013 states that the Cabinet Secretary shall implement the right of every child to free and compulsory education, and by basic meaning pre-primary, primary and secondary. Section 32 of the Act further states, no person shall, while admitting a child to a public school, collect any admission fees. As Form 1 students start reporting to schools Monday, Kiseu Munyoki, who was the best performing student among public schools in Taita Taveta County, will not be joining Alliance Boys even after securing a place. His parent, a widow, cannot afford the school fees.
Na huyu mtoto wangu naye ananililia, ananiambia mami, nitaendaji district school ama niende hizi shule zingine ndogo ndogo, na mimi mwenyewe nilifanya bidii nikapata hiyo alliance.
Kiseu is just a representative of dozens of students whose dreams of joining secondary schools are cut short due to lack of school fees. The Kenya National Parents Association has already moved to court to seek orders to declare any charges charged in public primary and secondary schools as illegal. And then the question of bursaries, money that is expected to boost parents to take their children to schools. In the case of Kiseu from Voi, her mother claims she has not been able to secure a bursary for the son despite the county having 50 million shillings allocated for bursary. But Kiseu is not alone. In Nyamira County, orphaned children and poor parents have had to depend on well-wishers to pay their school fees.
Money is given in blanket. You find like a school is given a total of, say, 800,000. This money is divided for a certain number of students without minding exactly how much is the school fee for that particular student. So you find a student is allocated 15,000, and yes, the school fees for this student by year is 90,000.
Sasa vila alianza kusaidiwa, hata kwa sula anafanya tu vizuri, anapata A, mini kiletia A.
Navakolo MP Emmanuel Wangwe has announced plans to bring a bill in Parliament immediately it resumes that will also see the government scrap examination fees. Wangwe says the cost of examination fees is barring many poor students from sitting exams. Angel Katusia, KTN.
Right, and we now want to take a short commercial break, but when we come back, Checkpoint. We've been having the discussion on social media, and I'm sure it's going to be an interesting one. Remember, the hashtag to use on Twitter is Checkpoint, hashtag Checkpoint. And you can also share your thoughts on SMS. That number is 22155. We're talking about political parties and the relevance they have in our everyday lives, particularly because ODM is going into a grassroots election. All of that coming up after the break, so just stay with us. Is democracy in political parties dead? That's our focus on Checkpoint.
Know enough about HIV transmission from mothers to children, or about improving maternal, newborn and child health. If we don't raise awareness, nothing will change. I will run to raise funds for access to better health care. I will run to ensure that we keep mothers, newborns and children alive and healthy. I will run until we go beyond zero. No more preventable deaths of mothers and children.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
Welcome back. You're watching Checkpoint. Now, today we're talking about political parties, as we've been saying, whether the state of democracy, and we'll put that in quotes, within the parties is a reflection of our democracy. Are we being too hard on political parties in this country? We keep comparing them to the US, which has had independence since, what, 1784, thereabouts? So perhaps we need to relook political parties. In my panel today, we'll talk about that. We have had some good representation. Obviously, not all the political parties can be represented here, but the two big ones. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I'd like to start with you, Omingo Magara, Chair of Center for Multi-Party Democracy. When you take a look at political parties in this country, do they live up to their mandate? Do they serve the purpose that they are meant to?
Thank you, Yvonne. First, let me say that comparing ourselves to the best is not a wrong thing, because we all aspire to grow. The only mistake you can do is comparing yourself with the worst. Having said that, it is true that when you look at abstract, the ruling coalition today carries a party that was younger than about a year before elections. That tells you a lot. That we keep mutating and changing as we finish our electoral process. And that has left us almost a little exposed in terms of propagating and growing the party from one level to the other. I think this courtesy of what it's been before, and with the mischief which was trying to be addressed by removing that party from individuals, by having the nation supporting political parties to the extent, therefore, that anybody who doesn't have money can participate in party elections because the party can be financed by state. There's an issue in that, of course, and yet to be addressed. But basically, most of us live and know the party slogan towards elections. Very few parties stand beyond party elections. And I think it's regrettable. It shouldn't be, because political parties influence and form government. So if you don't mean what we say after we got the power, I think it's pathetic.
Okay, and I think, Sakaja, that talks straight to the National Alliance Party that won the election 8-9 months into its formation. Many still say till today that, TNA was just, a machine to get President Uhuru Kenyatta into power. What guarantee do we have that TNA will be here 5-6 years down the line?
Thank you for that. TNA as a party, which I chair, is not a party that was formed purely for the purposes of elections. When we were forming the party, we had certain ideas around changing the tone and nature of our politics. It is a struggle. It will take a lot of time. And I assure you that the party will still exist many years to come. We're trying to do a lot to establish the correct kind of structures that outlive individuals. As Mheshimiwa Omingo Magara said, part of the challenge with political parties has been the fact that many have been driven by individuals, such that, especially because of financing, that when that individual ceases to be interested in the party, then the party disappears. But I think it's fortunate that now we have a legal framework through which political parties are governed that will ensure that parties can be able to be funded from the state, and so the parties can go on beyond just...
Okay, and I'll pose the same question to Kajang in just a moment. If you were to describe the personality of TNA, and like we say, we keep comparing ourselves to the best. In the West, who a Democrat is, who a Republican is. From the way they talk, the way they dress, the values they espouse, how would you describe TNA?
It is difficult to describe TNA or any party in Kenya.
Who is a TNA member?
With respect to any clear, let me not say ideological difference, because at this point of our democracy and many democracies, it's about efficacy. It's about, we know, ODM knows the one to deal with water, with electricity, TNA knows that, URP knows that. The reason that voters choose a particular party is because they believe then that these people can actually be able to deliver to us what we need now. If you read Tony Blair's most recent book about his own political metamorphosis, he says that even they now are moving from what used to be the very clear black or white, left or right, liberal or conservative. But what I describe TNA is a party of people who believe in opportunities, people who believe in hard work, people who do not want to necessarily wait for government to sort their problems.
Okay.
And that's where we come from. Instead of all the time haki yetu, we want to focus on wajibu wetu.
Okay.
What can citizens do?
All right.
Yeah.
Kajwag. I see you.
No, I just want to thank you for inviting me to be here to represent the views of, I think, the biggest political party in not only East Africa.
We'll get to that because there's a recent poll that says otherwise, but we'll get to that in a moment. How would you describe the Orange Democratic Movement? We know how it started.
Orange Democratic Movement begins from a philosophical position that we are social democrats and that we value core things to do with equality, to do with social justice, to do with the provision of the many things that my brother has talked about, but delivery of services without an accompanying philosophical grounding becomes a problem. ODM was born out of a reform movement. It was a necessity of reform-minded people and wananchi that brought this. And so you see, we have been very passionate about protecting the gains that wananchi have got, whether in terms of constitutional reforms, in terms of social reforms, and this kind of thing. And so, in one sentence, I describe ODM as a social democratic movement.
Prof, what do you think of these descriptions that are given here?
But even before you go to him, the point I was raising is that we also believe in social democracy. It is very...
Okay.
It is not that one party totally... If you look at the manifestos of many of our political parties, they're quite similar. We believe in social democracy, but it's for Kenyans now to say who delivers it.
And this is where Prof comes in. Do you believe what's being said here? What are your thoughts on this?
What has been said by Mheshimiwa Kajwang and my friend Sakaja, you see, listening to them, the more I look at Sakaja, the more I see there's no difference between him and Kajwang. Also, what you're being treated to is some Victorian melodrama, something too close to comedy. Because when they're saying they believe in equality, they believe in the social justice, these are just words. But when you look at them, the political parties are founded on individuals, and we know that powerful individuals are behind these political parties. Unlike the West, where political parties are founded around issues and policies.
Yes, and let's just talk about that powerful individual, because ODM is going through, a process right now. And Raila Odinga is...
Yes, Raila Odinga is ODM. And if he walks out of ODM, it will be a pale shadow of what it is supposed to be. You saw at one time Deputy President William Ruto was in UDM, and when he walked out after disagreements, it became jaundiced, and it needed to be put outside to receive some sunshine. And then it hasn't even recovered; it's still jaundiced. And then you look at the TNA. I think, except for the absence of the cockerel, actually it is the color is Kanu. So sometimes you don't see the difference. And several people from the former ruling party have again come back. So what is important here to say is that political parties are based on the fact that in Africa, we are highly ethnicized in our politics. And therefore, when people join a political party, they have to be sure that one of their own from their ethnic community is likely to rise to the top. If that promise is not there, the support for the party dies.
Yes, and Prof,
so
that is exactly
what
the crisis
Sakaja is all
ODM
about.
is
Tomorrow,
through,
and I want just to finish this point because it is critical, Yvonne. We run away from this hypocrisy. If you remember when Ford Kenya had problems in 1996, and a number of people following Raila Odinga walked out. You see, they walked out because they did see hope for their person. And immediately, LDP became a major party in Nyanza because of that person. And he has moved on to ODM. It has become a big party. And some of these fellows who are speaking have been moving from 1996 to now. So tomorrow, if the president moves out of TNA, it will be nothing. You saw it when Mwai Kibaki walked out of NANC and then formed PNU. Yes. After the 2007 elections, PNU was nothing. He knew he had finished it. He had finished using it. political parties in Africa, and especially in our country, is toilet paper. This tissue paper you can use and discard. And if you are very fair to the political parties, you can turn them into mats, where you can wipe some matope on it and then rewash. But mostly they are toilet papers to be used and then discarded.
All right. I think Professor...
Can I have
yes, Edward, then we'll come to you. Yes.
I really understand, or I'm trying to understand the frustration of academicians and prof. But I think, to be fair, this issue of whether political parties are galvanizing around individuals have been a little overstated. Even if you look around and you look in Africa or you look outside of Africa, there will be one or two people who are outstanding in a political party. That is definite, because those people happen to articulate the policies. They happen to have been given also the opportunity to be spokesmen in some cases. They happen to be also people that resonate with one another. Before you pick it, if you go to ANC, for example, Mandela, and right now even the president, if you go to ZANU, for example, Mugabe, if you go to the opposition Sekedu, if you go out of Africa and you go to France,
allow me to interject because there is the question within the party of ODM, Raila Odinga being a very central figure, and there is also the question of there is no clear delineation between party leader and chairman. And I read somewhere someone said that if Henry Koskei were a little stronger at the time that he was there, then there'd have been a clash. But you know, it seems like those lines are very blurred. Well, and let's not run away from it. Raila Odinga is the face of the party.
I think that is a fair comment. That is really a fair comment. But that notwithstanding, there will always be individuals that stand out. Well, if we start talking issues of the content of what makes therefore the political party in terms of its constitutive instruments and so forth, and you want to say, so what does the party leader do and what does the chairman do, you will find that the instruments are very clear. Except, of course, these things cannot be done in a vacuum. There is also the voter who is just impressed with somebody because he happens to have some enigma around them. And so you find that a party leader speaks, he is perhaps more outstanding than the chairman. Or a chairman speaks. There was Kamotho. And when Kamotho spoke, Kanu spoke. And yet when you go to the constitution, nothing gave Kamotho more opportunity than the chairman or anybody else.
You understand that the question that Yvonne is raising is fundamental. There are no institutions. The setup is not clear. And secondly, there are no members of TNA, just like there are no members of ODM in this country. Yes, but there are followers of Uhuru Kenyatta, and there are also followers of Raila Odinga. Just wait.
All right. Before we get there, let's.
Why can you allow me to make my point? Because
Prof.
You really don't want.
Let's allow Prof to finish, and then we'll get to
members. And then you look at the issues. You look at the issues that unite. If, for example, you ask the difference between ODM and TNA. Because it's not founded on membership which is committed to values, that's why there's no membership. Because they don't have issues. And that's why, if you go back to the United Kingdom, for example, let's pick a typical example. You have the Conservatives on one hand and the Labour. One of the things that each of them, the two of them have parted ways over the euro. The Conservatives want unionism, and they say that they cannot surrender British sovereignty to the European Union. And the other saying we can unite.
I think you're giving him too much airtime. He's being dramatic.
What's the difference between...
Listen, Prof.
What is the policy difference between ODM and of course what?
I feel a little sandwich in here.
Just a little bit. Let's have Omingo Magari.
We want to focus on real issues. And I think the critical thing, Prof said it, only that he said a little too hard. Let's agree that what ails us is institutions in our political parties and ideologies that we stand with. And frankly, some of us have been victims of circumstances. If you stand and say what it is that you must say correctly, you're able to, because you must not change the status quo. But granted, we did some particular laws last parliament where it was said the political parties are state officers, and therefore those in power, like my good brothers, should know. I know Sakaja wouldn't like that.
They resisted.
The chairman. We have institutions which you must respect. We said let's disabuse the political parties by introducing state funding, so that this gentleman is not an enigma. An enigma will come in terms of liquid. So we really, and you know by poverty levels, we are saying we should separate those two items and have our people look into issues, and anybody else who doesn't have the capacity can even be funded by state. That is not happening because we have an issue in terms of state funding today.
Let me say this, and I support the issue of state funding. First of all, whatever Professor said, there is some truth to it, definitely. That in the formation of political parties, there's always a pioneer and a leader around who people coalesce. Even if it's in the UK and the Churchills and the Thatchers, at the time when those parties were really getting the ideological grounding, and that happens even within the age of our democracy. But the question is, how do we really build national political parties and political parties that stand for something? Now that there's actually state funding, you don't have to wait for 5 years to wait for the personality who wants to win an election to come and put money. Political parties will have money all through to actually, one, make themselves national by having elections in the grassroots, by creating membership across the country. And the more we go that way, we'll have actually fewer political parties. We believe in democracy, but the idea that if I want to vie for president, I must have my own political party must really be disabused.
Okay, and while we talk about that, though,
progressively.
All right, okay. And you raise an important point, Sakaja, the reason that, if I want to be president, I don't have to start a political party, but that's exactly what Uhuru Kenyatta did. He did start TNA and then won the election 8 months later.
That is perfect. Everyone did that, yeah? Everyone ran on their
except
party.
ODM.
Except ODM. ODM had been there from 2005.
It was fair to us.
It had been there, but you know the history of ODM and Raila Odinga, as has been said. But I don't want to speak about ODM like that. All parties, all presidential candidates had their own party, including Dida, had a party called, what was it? Something, yeah? I think it is...
and doesn't that tell... Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It is not right for us to come here and pretend that our political parties are ideal. But it is more responsible for us to discuss what needs to be done to build institutions within our political parties.
All right. And institution building is...
What needs to be done?
Yes.
I think I need to push this.
Prof.
Okay. I think the issue of similarity and differences has been well taken care of. It is also reflective of the society. It matters whether a person who is ODM and next door is TNA. So what is the big difference between those voters?
There's
but let's
no
talk in terms of issues, as the two gentlemen are saying, that the first thing that we need to do is an acceptance. You see, the attitudinal change is much more important, in my view, than even the cash and pence that we are talking about.
All right, then let me ask you, are you confident that that attitudinal change will take place in your NDC? We're hearing of a lot of changes, there's a lot of push and pull, there's a lot of jostling for positions. Are you confident that after this election that comes up at the end of this month, that will happen?
From an independent view, he would give you that.
You see, I'll tell you something. Allow me to say, because it's a fair question for us. This is democracy at work. And this is the only political party that every 5 years we allow our members to be able to exercise their rights.
All parties have to.
Well, they have in law, but most of them sit on the table and draw lists.
Which is what many people are saying might be happening.
You have seen in my party, people have been crossing this country from Mombasa to Western. The other day they are talking to delegates in Central. The other day they are talking to delegates in Garissa. What are they doing? They are harnessing the views of those people to be able either to vote for them or not. Forget about what is going on, because this is the dynamics of any political engagement that you have everywhere. People have to trade horses. People have to explain what they want. And exactly this, you are yet to see how we are going to have a peaceful, democratic... We are the only party that has managed to have the 1/3 constitutional yardstick, even in the NDC, of women representation. The issue of youth, and regional representation, you see that ODM is in Mombasa. TNA is not in Mombasa.
TNA is
or in Coast.
They're making inroads now.
TNA is not in
No.
Eastern.
I think now, Yvonne, now, you know, I've been avoiding to talk about ODM as a
You sit down.
But let me
Yes.
just a minute.
Why don't you want me to say something?
No,
Because
Prof, let's have Prof first.
Okay,
So,
you,
yeah.
my
And then
brother.
we'll come to you.
We
will come to
I
you,
wouldn't
Sir.
go by what he's saying that there's no TNA there. I wouldn't go by that. But what I think is important is this. Let us not overlook this point that what needs to be done is a total de-ethnicization of our politics. And how do we do it? The voters upon which you want to strengthen party politics are highly ethnicized. Even when they are spreading across the country they are spreading across the country, they are thinking the final prize is having one of our own in State House so that we can use him or her to get goods and services. That attitude no change, Mheshimiwa. How do we come about it and make sure that our people are highly ethnicized so that we focus on issues, not ethnicity?
All right.
Let me say this. You know, I'm chairman of TNA, and if I had an official of ODM, I would engage him on, you know, back and forth on how our party.
Don't worry about that.
I will not do that. But there's this talk by ODM all the time. They like talking big. They're the biggest party in the country. They have the most number of MPs. Do you know the difference, first of all, of members of parliament in ODM, between ODM and TNA is only 5 MPs. We have the same number of senators. They have a few more governors than us, I think 3 or 4. TNA has 89 members of parliament. You cannot say they're all from one region, or they're not in this region or that region. But you will not come here.
That is not relevant.
To debate on which political party
that's not relevant.
is really
Okay,
popular.
and while
but
we're
with
talking
respect,
about...
with respect to the election, and I really want to avoid to talk about the intricacies. We have seen a section of people saying that, look, this thing is already prepared. There's a list of people. They say the SG is going to be a certain lady, and they know definitely that is what's going to happen. And they, it's already written down. You can try and do window dressing at the top to make parties look de-ethnicized. Get a chair of this community or out of this community.
Yes.
But the real question is, how are all political parties going to the people across this country to engage them and to make them members?
It is important.
That is true.
Right. Even as we say this,
very quickly,
it is very important to know that there is parties, members, and then there is supporters. This is what Kenyans don't seem to know. Everybody will say this party is popular or that party is popular, but what is the membership? ODM has membership of some 4.7 million. But out of those 4.7, yes, you can go to the registrar and check out that it is supposed to. But give me a minute.
Right.
The point is that elections are not done with those memberships.
They have delegates.
Elections are done by delegates.
Yes.
So you should be talking about how these people are talking to the delegates. And delegates are just some 6,000 or so people.
All right. And we will come to the role of members of the party and how they strengthen this.
But we do. According to the registrar of political parties, the party with the highest membership in this country is TNA. You can check it for yourself.
For us to give value to Kenyans, I pray that we don't focus on political parties, but talk about issues that touches on the entire democracy of political parties.
Which is what political parties are supposed to address. And the conversation is getting interesting. And I'm informed we have Tom Wolf on the line. He works for Synovate, if I'm not wrong. Tom, if you can hear me, thank you so much for calling us in on Checkpoint tonight. What's your comment?
The company is now called Ipsos, but don't worry about that. No, first of all, I apologize for interrupting. This is a fascinating and very important discussion, and I'm happy to make one small comment. Having been a part of a small team that did an assessment of Kenya's political parties a couple of years ago, all of us can do better, whether it's Kenya or the UK or any other country in terms of political party development. But I would just like to echo very quickly comments made by all of your presenters, I think, about 3 structural issues that make it very difficult for the parties to achieve the kinds of goals that you are talking about. The first one, I'll be very quick. The first one you've already mentioned, or has been mentioned, and that is the structure of Kenyan society. When you have half of the population under, or almost half, under the poverty line, and about 60% of Kenyans' families depending on homestead agriculture or livestock, it is impossible to ask parties to organize on the basis of ideology. What percentage of Kenyans, for example, pay taxes? It's very, very difficult in that sense. The second structural issue is the political parties act itself. If parties are required to be national, it makes it impossible for a party to organize and send any representatives to Parliament who are representing fishermen or herders or coffee farmers. If you want issue-based politics, you have to allow for subnational parties. And the third structural factor that makes it very difficult for these people to get out of these ethnic traps is the election system itself. There were people, including Professor Michael Chege, who went to the Committee of Experts when the new Constitution was being developed and argued very, very strongly for a party list system. So each party would have to present to the electorate an entire list of people from across the country in advance of the election, and then the voters would simply vote for that party, and the number of seats would be allocated in Parliament, whether one house or two, on the basis of what that party had offered to the voters in terms of both its policies and the individuals that had been pre-selected. So fine, it's like pushing a big boulder uphill, and I have a lot of sympathy with your guests. I think they're all smart. They're all thinking about the interest of the country, and I'm grateful you've given me this small chance just to changia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom Wolf. First time we're having a caller, so obviously we're definitely discussing issues that are pertinent. And he's raised something important, something interesting.
Yeah.
What if we take it away from the individuals and actually take it to the party and say we're voting for this party based on the ideals, and then after that start to appoint people from various parts of the country? Omingo, what do you think about that?
That will be more involving. People will feel part of the whole process. And maybe then, even then, we need to respect institutions. Even the laws that we have today to govern political parties, we have institutions. We have some laws that we need to look into. And particular system of involving people from everywhere, it will help people feel part of the system and be able to work hard towards that party gaining a particular threshold for them to gain access to power. But as it is today, the winner takes all syndrome, or my big tribe, my big region, my big pocket, is actually the serious issue. Now, in working with what we have today, I think we have a serious hiccup in terms of political party funding. It's 2014. Nobody has received a nickel towards political party funding.
We're waiting on the IBC for that.
No. There's a matter in court today.
Yes.
Because one, the money hasn't come in full dose, because they have given us about 0.3%, about less than 10% actually of the auctions what's supposed to come out of the political parties. Two, the Political Parties Act mooted again in a hurry last time to block a few others from accessing power, for resources. It says 5%. The threshold is curtails over the 54 parties. About 51 parties are out of the threshold, and that is the issue. What is being canvassed in court.
Okay, all right. I'd like us to make our closing statements now as we go, because we need to wind up our discussion.
I would say that multipartism is a constitutional principle that we have put in our constitution. It is important that we realize these institutions that we are talking about and make real political engagement in political parties, one of which is what Mheshimiwa is talking about. And I want to put it at the doorstep of Jubilee government. Look, Jubilee government has the mandate to be able to mature and nurture political institutions. When Jubilee government comes with a budget or supports a budget which does not allow that finance, that the law says very clearly that it must be 0.3% of the revenue last realized. If that is not something that they want to fight for and make sure that it is done, then it is that government that is weakening the institutions that we are talking about.
Okay,
and so for me, I think we just need to strengthen these things and realize sooner or later we should also not be over ambitious.
Okay.
We are growing progressively with everything, and our voters will catch up with us as we grow up in the political parties.
Sakaja, final comments?
Before I make my final comment, I just want to respond to that, because ODM has, maybe that is part of the philosophy, a habit of shifting blame. Government does not anymore do budgets in the way it used to do. Parliament does appropriation. The budget came to Parliament. I did not see a single member of ODM, including Honorable TJ Kajwang, who also happens to sit on the speaker's panel, raised the issue of the percentage.
Oh no, I should say
they
that
missed it
I
because
was
the
in the legal
amendment
committee and we actually brought it totally to the budget committee. But that's for another day.
Yes. But what I'm saying is this: we still have an opportunity when we go back to Parliament, when the supplementary estimates come. We can look at that, okay. And I think it'll be important for us to increase the amount of money that goes to parties. On what Mheshimiwa Okwara said, I don't think it was by mistake that there was a certain threshold that was put in the constitution for political parties to receive funding. Multi-partyism does not mean let's have as many parties as we can have, 100 political parties, 50 political parties. The quintessence of democracy as we see it in Kenya might be the states with 2 or 3 parties. I think we need fewer political parties, but better resourced, and political parties are actually based on ideology. Finally, I want to say, and as a chairman of a political party, that I believe that the future of this country is going to be driven by political parties that are based on ideologies and institutions. I am working very hard with our team in TNA to make sure that we provide one of those political parties that will be based on a certain platform that you will know what this party believes in. We have plans to engage our membership and all Kenyans on a number of issues, starting from leadership development, our grassroots elections, and ultimately our national elections.
Appeal to our members.
Yes.
Appeal to our members. Really look into the act that talks about threshold, because it is a constitutional provision and a Bill of Rights that you have political right to practice politics. And therefore, you may forget that tomorrow, a party that was called XYZ can be YZX. Towards elections. So if you see your brother being chopped, the same fate awaits you. You can be sitting pretty today. PNU does not even have one MCA member. So don't sit pretty, because the same acts could land on you. Look into the Political Parties Act, amend that clause to include those ones who participate in elections. Otherwise, it will be against the Constitution to exclude others, including Wiper doesn't get, Ford Kenya doesn't get. Kanu, the Baba and Mama that goes to those funds, and yet they have members in the assembly and they're required to run the
very
show.
quickly from
please engage us in Parliament.
Yes, and from the CMD, it's just about making political parties accountable to members and accountable to the electorate as a whole, and also participation of the members. Just if you can speak about that in a minute, maybe.
Well, what we look up to is to ensure that we don't reverse the gains that has been had since independence. Remember, Yvonne, people lost lives in terms of multipartyism. People were maimed. Some of us, you look at our hands, it's not about a beauty mark that we have here. It is a question of having an alternative view from what somebody else thought was right in essence. So what we're saying is, we need also, as we look for those funds, as we promise our people, we must answer to them what exactly that we pledge. Even when the state is going to fund these parties, the Political Parties Act requires that we are accountable, we keep records and assets, and we are subject to audit. Otherwise, it's not business as usual.
Absolutely. Prof, final comments?
Just finally, I would say that the problem is not funding, but I agree with your position that there's a problem with the structuring of parties and creating a new culture. Tom Wolf says that, he thinks that we need to have national parties. If our position is that we get nationalism by fighting tribalism or ethnicity, probably we are wrong. I think time has come for us to recognize ethnic rights and be proud of them. And if parties are going to be formed on the basis of ethnicity, we negotiate on that basis without being ashamed, because the nationalist agenda has failed in this country. People use it as a cover-up to promote inequalities.
The one thing that you've missed, Yvonne, really, is how members of the public need to engage with political parties.
Indeed, and that was what we were talking.
When you go to the election,
Okwara, yes.
You find a menu of people already selected by people who participate in nominations.
Okay.
I think more Kenyans should become members of political parties, participate in nominations that determine, who become the leaders.
Okay, so it's not just the political parties, but it's the members themselves. It's the citizens themselves.
There must be a serious list of members, not these ones that can be bought to be delegates and then tomorrow they quit the party.
All right.
So, but as we say, there is a birthday for him.
Yes.
I'm proposing that there is no difference between TJ Kajwang
and Sakaja.
Sakaja.
Yeah,
Okay.
they are ODM and TNA are the same.
ODM and TNA are the same. And on that note, thank you so much, gentlemen. And of course, where would our manners be if we didn't wish you a happy birthday?
Thank you.
Sakaja. Yes.
He won't tell us his age, of course.
He won't tell us his age. Some of us do know, but you know, it's rude. If you thought it's rude to ask a woman her age, I'm sure you could.
This is my last year in my 20s. I'm 29 this year.
Congratulations.
So there's a lot I want to do before I get to 30.
Oh my.
Thank you.
How interesting youth is. Yeah, the youthful party leader. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us, and happy birthday. Sakaja, thank you. Kajwang, thank you. Magara, for joining us on our panel tonight. We've been talking about political parties, and we thank you for your feedback. We'll continue to do that as well. Thank you as well to Tom Wolf for calling in with those great insights. That has been Checkpoint. We're taking a short break. Be right back. Time for sports news. Little-known Paris Chepchirchir and European cross-country runner Amos Mitei endured the glaring sun to emerge winners of the 22nd edition of the Nike Discovery 10-kilometer race and half marathon, respectively. The race attracted hundreds of athletes as well as spectators who lined up the streets of the athletic town of Eldoret.
Founded 22 years ago, the Nike Discovery Half Marathon has continued to play a huge role in identifying, nurturing and promoting talent in the athletic town of Eldoret as well as its environs. The late Samuel Kamau Wanjiru, London Marathon record holder Emmanuel Mutai, New York Marathon champion Geoffrey Mutai and World 1500 meters champion Asbel Kiprop are among the hundreds of track stars who are beneficiaries of the Talent Discovery platform.
The concept of Discovery is to find athletes that actually have no background in athletics, give them the opportunity to show their possibilities.
The 2014 edition of the Discovery Race lived up to its expectations, attracting hundreds of both established and upcoming athletes keen to make a breakthrough. The 3-kilometer loop race saw the male competitors stick together for just the first 2 laps before the men were separated from boys. European cross-country circuit runner Amos Mitei, however, stood the ultimate test to become the eventual winner in 1 hour 49.6 seconds ahead of Alan Kiprono and Robert Kipkorir. The 10 kilometers women race saw Kisumu Marathon third place finisher Paris Chepchirchir emerge champion. Any race held in Eldoret is dubbed the toughest race in the world, first by the virtue of Eldoret being on high altitude as well as the high level of competition, and it was no different in today's Discovery race held here in Eldoret town. Lynn Washira, KTN.
Sports fanatics and followers in Kenya were over the weekend offered an opportunity to enjoy and win money when watching their favorite games following the launch of an online betting game dubbed Sports Pesa. Fans will stand a chance of claiming up to 5 million shillings in awards by placing as little as a 100 shillings bet and predicting the right scores in both the English and Kenya Premier League games, amongst other competitions. Airtel, U and Orange subscribers are eligible to participate in this competition, with registration details available on the firm's official website in a competition that is exclusively for adults. To our news ended tonight. Now, you may have received a call from an unknown number informing you that you have won in a competition that you didn't even participate in. Conventional wisdom has it that these calls emanate from behind prison walls. And this week, KTN brings you the story of wardens who face the challenge of nipping this menace in the bud. KTN's Fredo Mulo brings us the story of Kodiaga Prison's smuggling ring and its underground economy.
The administration offices in Kisumu's Kodiaga prison are full of suitcases that hold confiscated contraband from prisoners. The thriving black market in the penal institution has become more and more conspicuous in the recent past as its new administration conducts frequent random searches.
These things enter into the prison, especially during the night shift. So we have to be vigilant during the night shift. That's why I said that we have deployed certain officers who do observation work during the night. And on a normal day when we do searches, on most of the time we will get about 5 to 6 phones per day.
But what's even more scary is that this assortment of contraband that ranges from a large number of mobile phones to lollipops used in brewing moonshine to rolls of bang is smuggled in by prison warders themselves. Since they live within the facility's compounds, wayward wardens often sneak in the illegal cargo whenever they are off duty, passing the items over the watchtower in the dead of night.
We had to change officers from certain departments and bring in new officers in order to curb the menace. So that is when they started operating from the watchtowers. And when we tied the noose around the watchtowers, they started using other inlets as culverts where water passes and windows that did not have seals.
The prison's chief administrator, Joshua Adero, who's been in office for a year, has had a rough time dealing with the menace, with senior officers involved often sabotaging his new team's efforts. This has taken the form of death threats on text messages, harassment from senior police officers, anonymous callers, and even a media personality in Kisumu City. From Kisumu City, I am Fredo Mulo.
Right, and with that, we've come to the end of our bulletin tonight. Thank you so much for watching, indeed, yesterday and today, and more importantly, for your feedback on Checkpoint. I know more time. We're definitely making sure that we get that in, but we grow better and better every day. Thank you for your feedback. Can't go through all of your tweets and your messages just now, but indeed, all your feedback is taken into consideration during our shows. Thanks again for watching. My name is Yvonne Okwara. Have a good night. We'll see you again soon.